by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy.
Let's win there.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
When you think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
You have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks you.
And I'm back. Here we go. Welcome to the Duke Report, a platform that we built to restore reason in an age of manipulation. Here we investigate systems that shape belief. We study the structure of language, power, and persuasion, what I call epi-war, the war on how we know what we know. Our goal is to deliver tools and understanding that expose these mechanisms and return clarity to the individual mind. From the ashes of the Pacific Palisades fire on January 7th, 2025, we built this project with purpose to create a resource for thinkers, researchers, and truth seekers. At DukeReportBooks.com, you'll find nearly 1,000 books, each paired with in-depth summaries, podcasts, and explainers. On SoundCloud, over 200 deep dive episodes expand the conversation, and on YouTube, new short explainers arrive daily, sharp, focused, and built to inform free thinkers across the world. This work is offered freely with no paywalls, no algorithmic gatekeepers. If you value it, subscribe at thedukereport.substack.com or support directly through buymeacoffee.com/thedukерeport. Your contribution keeps the project alive and independent. The battle for freedom begins in the mind. Strengthen your discernment, question the frame, live free in truth. And we're going to talk about discernment today. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but I want to start by thanking God that I had the ability to do this podcast today, because I woke up this morning with some thoughts in my head, and this is my notes for the show today. Okay, I have. Let me see if I could. I have to close them. There we go. Those are my notes for the show today. And because of the blocking and tackling that I've done, as far as all of the books that I've read and my understanding of how to use large language models, I've been able to put together what I think is a pretty cohesive presentation today. But I can't move forward without thanking the people, the giants whose shoulders I'm standing on top of. So first and foremost, Anthony Sutton and Carol Quigley, but along with those people, John O'Dowd, Jim McGregor, Jerry Doherty, Guido Preparata, Courtney Turner, Patrick Wood. There's a litany of people. Today I'm going to be leaning heavily on the work of Simon Dixon and Richard Werner. But there's a ton of people out there. Mrs. Heritage History, who you met a couple of weeks ago. If it weren't for all of these people, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm going to do today and say what I'm going to say. And if it weren't for the tools available, so I'm using Notebook LM. Some people think that that's creepy, but I'm using a large language model. And I woke up this morning with this. And what you're going to get today is a result of my ability to stand on the shoulders of all those people and then put all that stuff together in a way that I can explain to you what's going on. So let me start by saying that I woke up this morning with this idea, and the idea was that that all of the solutions that we're being presented with right now are material. And that's fundamentally part of the problem. And so I have a deck that I'm going to go through, and I'm going to kind of explain this stuff in depth. But I have a video that I made. And again, it's 2 o'clock Pacific now. I woke up at about 7:30 or 8 a.m. this morning, and I produced all of this material since then using these tools. So let me just preface what I'm about to show you. So the name of my presentation is Gold, Gigawatts, and God. And I realize all three of those words start with G, and it's alliterative. And so people are going to say that I'm talking about some kind of a new 666 and I'm a Freemason or something like that. And I didn't mean it. Although I think that maybe this is the anti-666. So this might be the antithesis to the Gnostic principles that we're all up against at this point. But I have this video in two forms. I'd like to try to use the StreamYard built-in function, but people have complained in the past that they don't get any audio. So I'm going to try that, and I would like somebody in the comments to let us know if you can't hear it, and then I have a fallback. But in any case, my thesis is that we're in a civil war, and the civil war is not between the Republicans and the Democrats, or the Labor and the Tories. It's not about political parties, because I think that those things are all fake. I think that they're all school plays, and that doesn't mean that people don't die, and that doesn't mean that things are not don't have real consequences for people in the real world. But that said, I think that the Civil War is between the old guard, who I'm calling the Phoenicians. Now that I've gotten that straight with Mrs. Heritage History, I think that we live in a world that is controlled through Phoenician empires, and then the new kids on the block, who are the technocrats. And I believe that the technocrats and the Phoenicians are in a civil war right now, and they're each trying to infiltrate one another. Because the technocrats started in the 1930s trying to build their movement, and then they were kicked out. Elon Musk's grandfather was kicked out of Canada. He wound up in South America. And then somehow the technocrats have managed to get enough money out of the old guard to spin up Silicon Valley in order to build their control grid, which I'll go into. But I think that there is a tug of war, because the old guard has a standard mechanism. We came off of the gold standard with Nixon, and now our currency is being inflated away. The assets are being stripped out of the Anglo-American empire, and the power centers are relocating. My guess is that they're relocating from London to Qatar and from New York to Singapore. That's my guess. That doesn't mean that they're going to completely abandon or leave New York or London. They'll still be there, but we can all see what's happening to New York and London right now. Like, that's not a place where these people want to go live. And the people who are in control, they probably want to live near the control centers of where their money is. And if you assume that there's going to be some kind of conflagration between Russia and Europe at this point, which is something that's trying to be spun up, then you don't want to really be right in the middle of that. You can keep Switzerland where it is, but if you're going to be moving large pallets of gold around, you probably want some place that's more like Singapore, that's kind of out of the war zone, or Qatar, which is close to a war zone, but not in the middle of it, and next to the biggest military base in the Middle East, which is the United States military base. So in any case, let me start by showing this video. And if you've got questions, I really want to make this interactive today. So I'd really like it if you'd ask questions. Jessica's monitoring the conversation on all the different platforms. And of course, because certain platforms like Rumble and X don't really, actually X does, Rumble doesn't really, and Substack don't really integrate on the chat, then she's going to have to go back and forth. So it would help her out a lot if you put a Q in front and keep it on topic. Please keep it on topic. Like, I don't want to know about some other topic other than what I'm talking about today. Okay, so with that, I'm going to try to play this video, and I want people to let me know whether or not that we've got good audio, and if not, then we'll go with the fallback. So here we go. Gold, gigawatts, and God.
Ask a really big question. What is the true nature of power? I mean, really, is it about gold? Is it about energy, gigawatts? Or is it something else, something deeper? In this explainer, we're going to dive into a pretty provocative idea that a system of global control that's been around for millennia isn't just ending, it's actually at war with itself. You see, for centuries, the thing we call empire hasn't really been a country, like Rome or Britain, not in the way we usually think. The idea here is that it's more like a mobile, parasitic financial system, a web of control that latches onto a host nation, drains it of its wealth and vitality, and then just packs up and moves on to the next one. Okay, so here's the kicker. What happens when that system, that parasitic empire, turns on itself? The central thesis we're exploring today is that there's a hidden civil war going on right now for the future of global control. To really understand the war that's supposedly happening now, we've got to rewind and look at the old playbook. So, let's start with the historical model of power, what we can call the Empire of Gold. Some analysts have a name for this, the Phoenician method, and the cycle is pretty consistent. A financial oligarchy captures a host nation. They establish a belief in a certain currency. They exploit that nation through debt, strip it of its real assets, and then, this is the crucial part, they migrate their center of power, leaving the old host completely hollowed out. And you can literally trace this lineage as it snakes through history. It's not about the nations themselves, right? It's about where the center of financial gravity is. You can see it move from Phoenicia through places like Rome and Venice, then shifting to Amsterdam, then London, and for the last century or so, New York. Each time, it's like a single continuous entity just changing its clothes. So how do they do it? Well, the mechanism behind this capture is brutally effective. It's basically a four-step playbook. First, you lend money to governments at interest rates that are mathematically impossible to ever fully repay. Then, you inflate their currency, making their money worth less and less. You engineer boom and bust cycles to create instability. And then, during the inevitable collapse, you sweep in and seize all the real stuff, the land, the resources, the infrastructure. It's a system designed to create a crisis just so you can profit from it. But here's where it gets really deep. The control isn't just about money. The most important part is something called epistemic capture. The idea is simple. Government is downstream of what people believe. So if you can control the media, the education system, and even the very definitions of words, you control the state. You basically get to control reality itself. So what happens when the host nation starts to fail? As the current Anglo-American system gets hollowed out, a power vacuum starts to form. And a new faction has apparently risen to fill it, one with a radically different vision for control. Welcome to the Empire of Gigawatts. This has supposedly created a massive split, a civil war of standards right inside the oligarchy. The old guard is fracturing, and this new group of technocrats is challenging the old gold-based model of power. And their vision? It is a whole different ballgame. Instead of money based on gold, they're proposing money based on units of energy, on watts. They're pushing hard for central bank digital currencies, a global digital control grid, and total surveillance, all packaged up in the name of efficiency. And if you want to get a peek into the mindset behind this, look no further than this quote from the World Economic Forum's Klaus Schwab. He called the pandemic a narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. Now, the key takeaway from that isn't about recovery, it's about a complete redesign, a reset of the whole system. Okay, so we've got two sides fighting for control, gold versus gigawatts. But what if it's a false choice? This brings us to the core argument of this whole thing, that we're looking at a kind of Gnostic prison, with two competing wardens fighting over who gets the keys. So let's just compare these two wardens for a second. The gold faction, the old guard, controls you through debt and the threat of violence, and they offer you the liberty to trade, within their system, of course. The gigawatt faction, the technocrats, they aim to control you through data and total surveillance, and they offer you liberty from inconvenience. As you can see, they're different methods, but the goal is kind of the same, managing the human herd. And here is their crucial common ground. Both of these factions are described as forms of Gnostic reductionism. Basically, they're both trying to build reality entirely out of physical stuff, out of matter, completely denying that there's any spiritual dimension to life. In their worldview, humanity is just another resource to be managed, optimized, and controlled. This brings us to the absolute heart of the manipulation, the word liberty. Both sides twist its meaning to get us to consent to their brand of slavery. The sources we're looking at argue that we've been taught to see liberty as horizontal, a right granted to us by a government or a market, but they propose that real, true liberty is vertical, a spiritual endowment that comes from God and God alone. So here's the crucial point. If both of these materialist systems are just a trap, then the only real way out must be vertical. It's not about choosing a better warden, it's about leaving the prison altogether. The proposed escape begins with reclaiming logos. Now, in Greek, this is so much more than just the word. It's the underlying reason, the deep logic and order of the universe. It's the power of language to define reality for yourself instead of having it defined for you by the prison wardens.
Next, we need krisis. This is spiritual discernment. Think of it as having a finely tuned BS detector. It's the ability to critically judge the information you're being fed, to see the bars of the prison for what they are, and to cut through all the propaganda from both the Gold and the Gigawatt factions.
Once you have that clarity, you can cultivate praus. This is often translated as meekness, but that's not quite right. It's not weakness. It's more like power under perfect control. It's having the inner strength to watch a corrupt system collapse without getting sucked down into the chaos and violence yourself.
And this inner strength is fueled by agape, a kind of divine, unconditional love. Think about it. The entire empire, in both its forms, is built on transactional logic. Debt, control, data for service. Agape is the one force that completely breaks that model. It operates on a level where debt and transactions are totally meaningless.
Ultimately, all these principles lead to the state of being Christos, the Anointed One. In this context, it means an individual so aligned with that divine order, with the logos, that the material control grid of the empire, it just becomes irrelevant. It loses its power over them.
So we arrive back at the final question, gold, gigawatts, or God. We can see the conflict isn't really between two financial systems. It's a battle between a purely materialist worldview and a spiritual reality.
The source material we're looking at argues that the entire materialist order, whether it's based on gold or gigawatts, is built on a faulty premise. It completely ignores a foundational truth. In the beginning was the Logos.
And that leaves us with a final question to really think about. Is true freedom something we can ever find in a system built by man, or is it something that can only ever be truly realized in the spirit?
All righty then. Let me take that out. So, again, that whole thing started from here. I'm blown away. There was one thing at the end there that I would have changed, and that is that Christos is capitalized. The word means anointed, and I'm not trying to insinuate in any way, shape, or form that if you, this is the, as far as I'm concerned, this is the Christian epistemology. So logos, Christos, prowess, agape. If you can apply all of those things whenever you're running into a decision-making process, then you'll be anointed. Okay, that doesn't mean that you'll be Christ. It means you might be Christ-like. You might be moving in the direction of being like Christ, but Christ is perfect. Okay, and none of us are perfect. We're all fallen. So I don't want to make, if I had one thing to change in that presentation, it would be that the C in Christ was capitalized, Christos. But other than that, I think it was kind of spot on. And so that's where I think that we are right now. I think that we've got the old kind of gold-based order that needed to be, the technocrats needed to get the support of the gold-based order in order to be able to launch Silicon Valley and in order to be able to invent the computer and the internet and all of those other things that they invented. But now there's a tug of war. There's a battle going on between the two of them about whose system is going to be in control, which is why you've got so many people buying gold and silver. Gold and silver are going off the charts right now, gold particularly. And then you've got the Bitcoin versus stablecoin controversy. And all of these things are indicative of different political positions within the oligarchy. Okay, so they're not all in agreement. And Simon Dixon points out, and I think that he's right, that Bitcoin is going to be the store of power, store of wealth for the oligarchs who are on the technocratic side of the equation. Okay, and gold is going to be the store of wealth for the old school. Okay, and smart people understanding investment probably have a little bit of each. Okay, so it's gonna be heads I win, tails you lose situation for the oligarchy. Okay, but both of these systems are material. Okay, both of these systems are godless, and the in the epistemological form, understanding that we're in an existential fight that's based on what we believe, and that in the essence of Christianity, in the essence of the teachings of Jesus, okay, he gave us this method of logos, crisis, prowess with agape. Okay, this is the Christian method, and it's only informed. I could only do this today from this when I woke up this morning because of what Wolfgang Smith refers to as vertical causation. That is, when I went to sleep last night, this was not in my being. Okay, this was not in my Peter Dukes experience. All right, when I woke up this morning, I was thinking a lot about the whole concept of sleep on it. Sleep on it is such a powerful thing. You know, it's when God talks to us in our dreams. So anyway, I've got some slides. I'm going to go look at some questions too, but let me pull up the slides. So I've got this kind of broken down. I did 3 different decks and 4 different videos, and I still haven't even gotten around to making the audio podcast yet, but I will. And so let's look at some questions. So Xanadu said Zarlenga. Okay, so let me see if I can share with you. I think Zarlenga is in my. So basically, the way that I put this together, I'm pretty sure that Zarlenga. I can share this. Let me pull this screen away so that I can show you what I did, because I want all of you to do this. Okay, I want the Notebook LM. I've played around with all of the different LLMs out there, and the one that I think is going to be a game changer for most people is Notebook LM. So I'm going to share this screen. Here we go. And here we go. So for people who are not familiar with Notebook LM, it's a product by Google, and you can see that I took a bunch of sources that I had, and some of them loaded and other ones didn't load. And I thought that there was enough redundancy and I needed to get this done in order for the show to start today. So you said Zarlenga, The Lost Science of Money. I believe I put, yep, there it is. Lost Science of Money right there. Okay. So The Lost Science of Money is formulated in. So basically what I did is that I wrote down my idea, okay, that you guys just saw, okay, about the Civil War, about materialism versus Gnosticism, okay, and about the definition, the Christian ontology that is required in order to achieve what Wolfgang Smith calls vertical causation. Okay, so I put Wolfgang Smith in here, I put Zarlenga in here, I put Simon Dixon, I put Richard Warner, I put a bunch of books. Okay, I put Webster Tarpley, and then I went into another app. I went into Gemini. I didn't use ChatGPT today, and I had Gemini write me prompts that I could use. And if you see over on the right side here, where it says audio overview, this is how I make the deep dives. Video overview, this is how I just made the video. So I got Gemini to write a prompt for me, and then I put the prompt in here, and you can, if I click on it, I think, let me see, if I go to Gold Gigawatts and I click on here, and then I won't start it, but here's my prompt. Okay, so there's the prompt that I wrote in Gem video. And that's how I wound up making the slides that I'm going to show you also, because the slides, there's another thing called a slide deck right here. And then there's infographic. I forgot to show you the infographic. Let's bring it up, shall we? I'm going to get rid of this. Say remove. And I got to go find the infographic image file. Hang on a second. Yeah, let's see if I can find this. Here we go. And this is dope. This is totally dope. So, so let's answer Xanadu's question. Look, we got more alliteration. Xanadu, Zimba, Zarlanga. He said, Law, Science, and Money calls gold the first fiat currency. And then he said, do you agree? Yes, because I think all currencies are fiat. And I think that the whole idea of the only reason that gold became a standard is because it was limited, and the bankers convinced everybody that that should be the standard. This is the epistemological component of belief. Like I've talked about before, my definition of magic is when you take a self-evident truth and you wrap it in a mystery. Okay, so the fact that gold becomes the standard is only a standard because that people have created a mystery around gold, and then everybody agreed to it. And that's what makes it magic. Okay. There's nothing intrinsically valuable about gold. Okay. Except that everybody agreed that because it's limited, that will be the standard. It's hard to move around. And because it's hard to move around, it's facilitated this thalassocracy debt cycle. But anyway, yeah, I believe that money is all a form of magic. And that's why I think that really and I don't know what the exact solution is, but Mike Jones talks about it in his book, Barren Metal, about how if you don't have a morality-based economy, that you're always going to wind up where we are now, which is, again, why Jesus threw the money changers out of the temple. Okay, that's the whole point. Anyway, get rid of this. And let's say Rose Belizia says, profound framing. Thank you very much. I appreciate your insight. Xanadu says, again, freedom on an ontological level is God-given, 100%. Freedom is internal, and it's about your relationship with God. And from a social basis, it's limited, and those limit boundaries are socially, politically contingent, I think. Yes. Yes. Okay. Liberty is something that's external, that it is freedom that is bestowed on you by a government or a person or a king or somebody like that. Okay. And I've got slides about this too. I've got good slides. Notebook LM made some really good slides. It's got some mistakes in it, and it's got some things in there that I think are over my head and I don't even understand them, but we'll talk about it when we get there. So yes, 100% Xanadu. That's an astute observation. Arthur says, would properly outlawing corporate and political sociopathy create more equitable basis for human existence? Yes. And if you understand that these sociopaths are not accidental, that is, they are, if you look at MK Ultra is a sociopath manufacturing process. Okay. And if you look at the entire way that CEOs and the leaders of corporations are chosen for their sociopathic tendencies, and things like the 3-month quarter will weight you heavily towards sociopathy. So outlawing it, I don't know if outlawing it would be as effective as making it moral. Okay. It would be moral for companies to not have sociopathic CEOs. Okay. Tim Cook would be gone. Boom. Larry Fink would be gone. Boom. Larry Ellison would be gone. Boom. Okay. no more sociopaths, and you could change the world that way, right? That would be a tweak, right? It wouldn't completely fix it, but yeah, that's a really good step in the right direction. Good thought, Arthur. Daily Eric Carey says, was the founding of the United States the work of the Phoenicians? Some offshoot. Yeah, I'm convinced that it's Freemasons. It was, again, if you look at my 60-degree of Freemason Cabal chart, dialectics, and I'll, if I remember, I'll write that down. Let me see, chart. I've got a notepad in front of me. Chart and dialectics. Yeah, so the point of the American Revolution was to get rid of the monarchy as the control mechanism and put it in control of corporations, which was what happened. And again, in retrospect, after 250 years, it's kind of easy to see that. Okay, you get rid of the king, you get J.P. Morgan. Okay, it's not more complicated than that, right? So the Phoenician method, and again, Notebook LM made this graphic based on my notes, is that you manufacture debt cycles, then you relocate capital, and then you strip assets, and you do that while you're controlling belief systems. This is where I think Curtis Yarvin has it incorrect. His cathedral of control is universities, government, and universities, media. I think that it is religion, which is why you have this dialectic warfare going on in religion. It's religion, media. What's the third one? Education. Religion, media, and education. These are the epistemic mechanisms for controlling people's beliefs. So I think that Curtis doesn't have it correctly because Curtis is a Gnostic and he's a materialist. Okay, so they look at Gnostic materialists look at religion as an inconvenient hobby that controls the way that people believe, and that's because they don't have any vertical causation. They don't have any Holy Spirit running through them. They don't have any transcendent. They don't have an understanding that we are made in the image of God. Okay, they want us to be more godlike. Well, we started out that way. Like, we don't need to be better than we are because we already are made in the image of God. Gnostics don't understand that. That's not the way that they frame their reality. And so let me see if I can get rid of this so I can see my numbers. So yeah, so it shows it going from Venice to Amsterdam to London to New York. I kept trying to get it to put Switzerland as a little colony in there, but it wouldn't really do it. And then you see the in the middle on the bottom here, you see the gold back old order versus the Silicon Valley technocrats. So that's kind of where we are. And if you don't believe that, like, if you look at what Donald Trump is doing right now, okay, with Venezuela and Greenland and now Cuba, I've seen in the news in the last couple of days, this is the tech native North America. This map is from 1946, but it was in the 1930s that I think that Elon Musk's father got kicked out of Canada. But here's what I was thinking about this morning. When Trump came in, the technocrats tried to grab control, and Elon Musk went in as the Doge, right? And there is a fallback. The technocrats have a fallback because they have J.D. Vance, because I believe that the technocrats are represented by Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. Okay. And their fallback position in case Trump falters is J.D. Vance. And so what I see happening is that Trump went in and the technocrats were behind him, but very quickly, and I think it's becoming apparent at this point, that the gold-back old school, the Rothschilds, okay, are pulling him in that direction, and the technocrats are pulling him in another direction. So for people to look at like Israel or Zionists or all this other thing, you're aiming low. You got to aim higher. Okay. So, you've got the Rothschilds and the European oligarchs that are basically basing their ideas on this gold-based currency system. And then, but they've got hedges in crypto. Okay. And then you've got the technocrats. Okay. And this is the battle between the two of them. And look at this map and then look at the news and turn the sound down. Okay. Just don't listen to what people are saying, because people are stupid. They're not giving you the right info. Okay. So let me take this out and move, and I'll put in my slides. Oh, I'm going to go back to questions too. Share screen, window, and where's my slides? There they are. All right. So I answered the Phoenician question. Xanity's full of questions today. I've been using DeepSeek more and more. What's the advantage of Notebook LM? I don't know. I haven't used DeepSeek yet. Notebook LM made all these slides. Notebook LM makes audio podcasts. Notebook LM made the video that you watched today from my notes going into Gemini to write the prompts. And I probably could have written the prompts in Notebook LM. I probably could have written the whole thing without leaving Notebook LM. But I kind of understand the feel of Gemini. I understand the feel of, I understand the nuances of how to write prompts for Gemini or how to write prompts for GPT. I haven't gotten the nuance down for Notebook LM yet. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not. There's so many different models that are out here right now, and there's only so many hours in a day, right? I mean, at this point, we have a wealth of, what do they call that when you have too much stuff and it's all good? Rose says, will we need a constitutional convention? No, it's irrelevant because they already own all the politicians. We have to start with our own consciousness first. We have to start with our own personal relationship with God and mindset. Because if we don't get good with that, there's no plan that we can come up with that's going to work. Okay, so the problem with the Constitutional Convention is that they own all the politicians. So who's going to show up there? William F. Buckley said once, and I think he was being glib, but I think he was right. He said that our country would be better represented if we randomly picked people out of the phone book. This is back when they had phone books. That would be correct. I don't believe there's anyone that's in public office today who, if they showed up at a constitutional convention, would actually be representing us. And I'm sad to say that. Maybe Ron Paul, maybe Edward Griffin. I mean, if we had a constitutional convention and it was Guido Preparata and Simon Dixon and Catherine Austin Fitts and Mark Skidmore, and I'm trying to think of some other people, Patrick Wood, Courtney Turner, Christine Jones, Mrs. Heritage History. If there was a bunch of normies that showed up to try to fix things, yeah. If it was a bunch of attorneys who went to Harvard and Yale, Georgetown, forget about it. Like, it's just going to be more tyranny. It's just going to be more tyranny. The legalism has got to go out, and it's got to be replaced with moralism. Xanity one more time said, what's the best chance of breaking out of the lay of oligarchy? Diagnosis of the problem doesn't break us out of law. One is born out of all study of history. That's why we just have to look. We have complete and total 100% control over getting good with God. Each one of us right now, today, you have 100% autonomy to be able to do that. If you can start applying logos, crisis, prowess with agape, on every kind of decision point that you make in your day, okay, if we all do that, the world becomes a better place, okay? And we don't have to do it together. We're in church right now. This is Matthew 18:20 church, okay? Where two or more are gathered. We're talking about solutions here. I'm giving you the Christian solution. Logos, crisis, prowess, agape. Do those four things. You're anointed, okay? It's not more complicated than that, okay? A lot of Christianity is self-evident truth wrapped in a mystery, okay? Get rid of the mystery. Look at the truth. It's there. It shows us how to fix this. Here we go. That's the good news. That's what they call good news, right? Question. It seems that the technocrats were reacting to the USA as it was to replace individual self-rule. There's problems with the Constitution. That's why they need to go through this Hegelian dialectic. That's why the Berggruen Institute and their network have to burn down the Palisades, okay? Because they need to get people, citizens, so frustrated with the lack of the ability of the government to govern, okay, that they're willing to replace it with something else, okay? That's the whole point. So let me see if I understand this question correctly. It seems that the technocrats were reacting to the USA. It's not just the technocrats, okay? None of these materialists, okay, look at the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence, it's different than the Constitution. The Declaration of Independence says that we hold these truths that to be self-evident, that all men are made in the image of God. Is that no? Yes. And that our rights come from the laws of nature and nature's God. Okay. That's what Wolfgang Smith refers to as vertical causation. That's why people, when they put together the Bill of Rights, they said these rights don't come from the government. These are the rights that the government is supposed to protect you from people taking away from you. Okay. Well, Barack Obama didn't like the Constitution because he said it was full of negative rights. It's full of things that the government is not supposed to do, or supposed to prevent things from happening. Okay. And that we needed to fix that. That's what Obama said. Individual self-rule. The reason that we have different states is because they all have different constitutions, and the founding fathers thought that they would all have different approaches for defining what the word liberty meant. Okay. Liberty is a squishy word. Liberty is a word that it's completely contingent on who you think you're getting your freedom from. And it's very clear in the Declaration of Independence that it's the laws of nature and nature's God. Okay. In the Constitution is about what government can and cannot do. Okay. And there's a disconnect. There's always been a disconnect between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, which, getting back to the Freemason question about was the United States founded by Freemasons, the Constitution was put into place, 16 or 18 years after the Revolutionary War, because the Articles of Confederation weren't working for the banks. Okay. In junior high school, you learned that the reason that we had to have the Constitution is because there were 13 different monetary systems. Well, that's not a citizen problem. That's a banker problem. Okay. And if you kind of understand it at that point, the Constitution was solving a lot of problems that bankers had with the United States of America. And it became in a way, the Constitution is kind of a Trojan horse for those bankers, because once they got the Constitution in, they could start changing it one amendment at a time, one law at a time, one politician at a time, one judge at a time. They could start changing it. It's taken them 250 years. They're very patient. That's the Fabian way, right? Rose says, is Notebook LM an app? It's a website. Go to Notebook. It's notebooklm.google.com. Go there right now. And what's great about it is that you can drop anything into it. I was talking to Miss Heritage History this morning, and You can drop, if there's a book and look, I'm not saying this is better than reading a book. Okay. I don't want anybody to misconstrue what I'm saying. I am not saying it's better than reading a book. I'm saying that Miss Heritage History sent me a book, and it was a book that she didn't want to read, but she thought that there might be some information in that book that would be interesting. So without reading the whole book, you can drop the book into Notebook LM and you can turn it into a half an hour podcast. And instead of spending 16 or 18 or 20 hours reading the book, you can spend 30 minutes and listen to the podcast. Or you can click the video button and you can make it into an 8-minute video. And then, oh, this is what's really cool. Let me share this. It does mind maps. For people who don't know what those are, let me hide this. Get rid of that. Share screen. Go back to Notebook LM. Oh, this is so powerful. So I put all of these documents in here that you can, wait, I got to bring it up. So I've got all these documents on the left side here that I put into it. And then I write a prompt and it puts the video out. But one of the things that it's really amazing is that it does these things called mind maps. Now, when I first read, I love mind maps. I used to have mind mapping software. And when I read the book, The True Believer by Eric Hoffer, I read the whole book. I underlined it. I put in Post-it notes. I did all of those things. And then I spent 3 days with a mind mapping piece of software, and I mind mapped the whole book so that I would have a good way to really internalize and understand what the book was about and what Hoffer was saying and how he was doing these things. And so you can see I put all of these sources in here, and now it's automatically built. So it's got the Venetian roots. The Venetian roots is broken down to financial innovation. The financial innovation is debt-based banking, usury and centralized control. And then it goes into the Giovanni revolution, which is an example. And then the philosophical framework. Again, it obviously, Mrs. Heritage History and I were the book that we were talking about was basically a Freudian analysis of Aristotle. And the reason I didn't put it on the book section of the Duke Report, and the reason that I haven't put it out there, is because I'm not sure that a Freudian analysis of Aristotle is a real good way of looking at Aristotle. But still, we both wanted to see what was in the book. And so obviously from my sources, it's pulled that out of some of the LaRouche sources that I've got in there. And it didn't make it into my video, and it didn't make it into my video because of the prompt that I wrote, but it's in there. All right. And so it builds these mind maps. And so you can drop a book, you can drop a Substack article, you can drop, if somebody sends you a TLDR, if somebody sends you a 10,000 word article from the New York Times, save it as a PDF, drop it on your desktop, drop it in a Notebook LM, have it read it, have it analyze it for you, break it down. Okay. I'm not saying that's better than reading the New York Times article. I'm saying that reading a 10,000 word article from the New York Times will take you 2 hours. Turning it into a half an hour podcast cuts the amount of time by 75%. If you make it into an 8-minute video, it cuts it down by, more. And if you decide that there's something you can build a mind map. And if there's one particular subject, if you want to go into financial subjugation methods and click on credit and debt control and let's see, the Great Taking, click on that, then you'll see that what it does is it will go through all of these sources on the left here, and then it will build and the prompt that it automatically wrote was discuss what these sources say about the Great Taking, securities collateral in the larger context of credit and debt control. And right now it's searching all of these sources. Okay. And it's going to put together, it's going to answer the question. Now, this is a different way than most people use. I see most people using large language models. People use large language models by asking them questions like it's a chatbot. Okay. I'm not doing that. You can see on the left side of there that it's only using my sources. So it's only using my training materials. Okay. the first rule of computer science is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Okay. If you ask it a question without giving it a reference, it's going to go to its training data. It's woke training data. Okay. If you give it a bunch of sources and say, look in these sources and give me this, then it will give you this. And what it's done is it's gone through and it's written an entire article on let me see. I have to get to the prompt. I scrolled past it. The Great Taking. It's giving you an analysis of the Great Taking. So I want everyone to do this. I don't want the Duke Report to be the only website that's doing this. We win if everyone does this. Okay. If you find a book that you think that your cousin Ernie should read and you know he's not going to read it, turn it into a half-an-hour podcast. Turn it into an 8-minute video. Send it to him. Okay. I did an interview with James Dellingpole yesterday, which I don't think is posted yet. I'm looking forward to it because it was a good conversation. But James Dellingpole was telling me that he gave his best friend the book Two World Wars and Hitler for Christmas, and then he went and he had tea with his friend, and he was sad because he started having a conversation with his friend who said that he read the book, and he could tell from the way that he was answering the questions that he hadn't read the book. So I sent James Dellingpole, the 8-minute explainer video on Two World Wars and Hitler. I said, give him this. Maybe he'll read this. Okay. Because if people won't read a book, maybe they'll read a 1,500-page summary of the book on the DukeReportBooks.com. And if they won't read the summary, maybe they'll listen to a half-an-hour podcast. And if they won't listen to the half-an-hour podcast, maybe they'll listen to the 8-minute video. But this technology is amazing, and it's available to all of us now, today. Okay. I started off this morning with this. Okay. And now we're so I'll take this out. That was a bird walk. Let's get rid of Rose's comment. And what's the next one? People speak of tribunals. I don't know what the quick answer is. Okay. I know. Well, actually, that's not true. I know what the quick answer is. The quick answer is we have to get good with God. Okay. The solutions will become self-evident. Because what will happen, this is what happens. Okay. When you get good with God, then vertical causation comes to you. God comes to you. Okay. Only through the Logos do you get to the Father. Only through Jesus do you get to the Father. Jesus is Logos incarnate. Only through Jesus do you get to the Father, to the truth. Okay. So I don't know about tribunals. I don't know about constitutional conventions. I know about God. I know how to get good with God. Logos, crisis, praus, agape. That's how you get good with God. That's all of the New Testament. That's what Jesus is doing. Time after time after time. He's ding, 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 ding. He's doing those 4 things every time. All right. Here we go. Vic Hughes. Is the war over only money and power, or also over Phoenician secrecy that the technocrats can destroy? Let me see if I understand this question correctly. Is the war only over money and power? There's 2 components. Okay. And there's probably more, but the major 2 components are, well, maybe there's 3. 2 components are finance and epistemology, which is belief. Okay. So religion is belief. Education is belief. Media is belief. These are all things that control what we think is real, how we frame our reality. Historically, the monopoly on violence has been combined with the financial power. Okay. So wars and police are about using a monopoly on violence to be able to control society, or control something that manifests itself. So or also over Phoenician secrecy. I think that the big secret, and I've talked to several people about this. The trivium is missing linguistics. If you, there was a thread and where I was having a back and forth with Ethical Skeptic. On Ethical Skeptic's website, he lists 3,000 logical and scientific fallacies. Okay. And in most cases, those logical and scientific fallacies fall into one of 10, and sometimes a combination of more than one, of the patterns that are defined by Richard Bandler and John Grinder in the meta model. That is, something is false because it's got a cause effect that's not true, or it's got a complex equivalence that's not true, or it's using a universal quantifier that's not true. The thing about linguistics is that there's basically 10 linguistic patterns in the meta model. And by learning how to comprehend language, the sentences that are being used by people, and filtering it through that meta model, you can create a bullshit detector. Okay. And it may not tell you the truth, but it's very good at telling you when something's a lie. Okay. And if you know that something's a lie, then you can go find the truth. Okay. So I think that the big secret, and this brings us, and it's going to be in my slides, and spoiler alert, it's the last slide. This brings us to John 1:1. Okay. And again, I'm not trying to sound like an evangelist today, but I guess I'm being an evangelist. All right. The idea is that the secret is that language is used to frame our reality. Okay. And that words are used in order to control our belief systems. That's why John 1:1, in the beginning was the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and the Logos is God, is the key to the whole thing. And Michael Jones has he wrote a book called Logos Rising, and he's been commenting all over the place that Logos is rising. And I think that the fact that we're having this conversation, and that I woke up to this morning, okay, and I'm sharing this with you today, is indication that Logos is rising. So the big secret is linguistics, I think. And John Grinder and Richard Bandler gave us the meta model. And if we can understand how to filter language through that to recognize BS, we don't have to be hypnotists. You don't have to be a hypnotist to understand the meta model. You don't have to be Tom Brady to understand football. Okay. You just have to see it. You have to learn how to be able to watch and look for it. Okay. And I don't know if I answered your question, Vic, or not, but maybe if I didn't, you can phrase it in a way that's less confusing to me. Caravaggio says, any Phoenician significance to the mirrored aviators that Macron wears? I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't even know he wears aviators. Xanadu says, I like the good news you profess, the one that I share being a Christian, yet didn't God give this world to Satan? Satan just means going in the opposite direction of agape. Okay. If you're Satan, lowercase s, Satan means the opposer, to go in the opposite direction. If you're not going in the direction of love, you're going in the opposite direction. You're going towards Satan. Satan offered it to Jesus when he tempted. Yeah, he offered him more. Yeah, this is a good point. Satan offers Jesus control over the moral realm, over the material realm. Okay. And in order to rule over the material realm, you have to let go of the vertical causation. You have to let go of your connection with God. Jesus was never going to do that. Jesus was God. He wasn't going to do that. So to me, Satan just means making decisions that are going against agape. Like, that's not, again, not complicated. It's not complicated. Somebody says you can drop an optical scan into Notebook LM and it will OCR the text. Yeah, that's pretty good. ChatGPT doesn't do that. Notebook LM will read. So if you want to drop a PDF into ChatGPT, it already has to be OCR scanned. Okay. And most of the books that you can get off of the web archive are OCR scanned, but they're not all OCR scanned. And most of the PDFs that you can get of books are OCR scanned, but not all of them. And Notebook LM will scan them. Again, it takes longer when you drop it over there, and it takes longer for it to become available, but that's because it's going through all the pages in OCR scanning it. And then he says, I thought the app was crashed because it took so long, but it was OCRing the scan. Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's OCR is almost built into Apple at this point. Like I can, they haven't fully committed to it yet. But if you open an image in Apple, you can highlight text in an image, which is one step towards getting there. Xanadu says again, isn't it possible that the problem is not one of isn't it possible that the problem is not one of knowledge, but of will? 100%. The Lima. Again, well, that's the Crowleyan word for it. If so, the line you or we are pursuing may not be the correct, or at least incomplete. I need to know more. I don't know. This may be like a conversation we have to have, not a comment in a chat, because this looks like a 45-minute conversation, and I don't know that I completely understand your question. Rose says, how do you turn a book into a digital artifact? The easiest, if you don't have a scanner, there is an application that you can get on Mac and Windows that's called a vFlat. Let me see if I can find the page for you. Scanner. vFlat scanner. Share this tab. vFlat scanner, yeah, you can get it on Android or Apple, and you can put it on your phone. And what you do is you take a picture of every page in the book, and it automatically, it's great. I suggest doing it during the daytime and getting into a room that's well lit with indirect light, not direct sunlight. You can scan the whole book. So 2 World Wars in Hitler is not available as a PDF, nor should it be, because everybody should pay for it and everybody should buy it. Okay. But I wanted to be able to make a video about it, and I wanted to be able to make a podcast about it. And so I used vFlat scanner. It takes about for a book the size of 2 World Wars in Hitler, it takes about an hour. And then once you do that, there's a variety of different ways that you can OCR it. I own a license for Adobe Acrobat, and Adobe Acrobat Pro will do that automatically. vFlat is a freemium software, meaning that it's got different services. So you can do the scans and put the book together, no problem. If you want to OCR the whole book, I think they charge, I don't know, it's like $39 a year or something for all you can eat. Every book you can scan. So, and it's great for documents. I know, Rose, that you have boxes and boxes of documents. You can just sit there with your iPhone. You can just scan them all and turn them into digitized documents. It's a killer app. I found out about it from Larry Sanger, from the Wikipedia guy. All right, so let's get rid of this. And let's get rid of this. And let's go back to my slides, shall we? I need to go find them, though. Share slides. So what do you guys think? I mean, so far. Here we go. All right, first slide. So gold, gigawatts, or God, the end of the Phoenician method of forensic historical analysis. So the old order is based on gold and this debt-based monetary system, and the new order is the I gotta just get this here, is the technocracy. And so this is the battle for control right now. So this is what's going on at Davos right now. Okay, the technocrats and the Phoenicians are trying to figure out what kind of deal they can make. That's basically what it is, because it is there are certain parts of the world that I disagree with Simon Dixon on. Again, I think this is a 3,000-year-old thing. He says there's no cabal. I think there is a cabal. Okay, I think it's a 3,000 or 9,000-year-old cabal, because it turns out you can go back, if you're following the Addis thread, you can go back 9,000 years. Okay, but in any case, it's old. It is a cabal, and it's played like a game. Okay, so there is a lot of game going on, but the big point of this first slide is that empire is not a country. It's a mobile, parasitic, financial, and epistemological mechanism. That's what empire is. Okay, so and we're witnessing the final mutation, the molting. It's like the snake shedding its skin. The Anglo-American Empire is coming apart. Okay, but it isn't being destroyed. It's just the power is moving someplace else. So we're witnessing a climax of a millennia-old cycle. The host, the Anglo-American West, is dying. It's triggering a war of succession between the two forms of godless materialism. Faction A is the thalassocracy, and their goal is to return back to a gold-backed monopoly on violence based on scarcity. And faction B is the technocracy, which is a new world order of energy, watts, digitized control grid, currency, and currency equals energy. I think that's what's going on. Okay, there's enough people who are still invested in gold that gold is still in the news. Gold is going up in value. Okay, it wouldn't be going up in value if people didn't have skin in that system that uses gold, that is dependent on gold. So the trap is both factions practice Gnostic reductionism. It's a false dichotomy attempting to trap humanity into a closed loop. Okay. The empire is a virus. It's not a nation. Okay. The step one is infection, command a locality, and create a belief in currency. Now, this is one of the problems with LLMs. I don't think it's just a belief in currency. I believe that the religion wars that we have are, and I believe that Christianity is singly different from all of the other religions, because all of the other religions, and Wolfgang Smith was the one who pointed this out to me, all of the other religions are about the destruction of the self. The metaphor that they use is that you are like a drop of water being dropped into the ocean. Okay. This is what the TV show on Apple Plus right now, Pluribus, is all about, where everybody, on 7 billion people on the planet, become one person, right? And there's 12 disciples that are left over, that are there to defend humanity, and they're not very Christ-like. So the one thing that I think the LLM got wrong is that it's not just a belief in currency. It's belief, okay, with a capital B, okay, that is part of the command and control system. But once people believe in a certain currency, okay, then expansion happens. You exploit frontiers. This is why Mars becomes so important, okay, because when you were the Phoenicians and your entire world was the Adriatic and the Mediterranean, the Black Sea, then you expanded into the Atlantic, then you expanded into the New World. Then when you found out that the globe is zero sum, there's an end to it. Okay. That's why Mars winds up becoming so important, because if you look at the way that debt is continually rolled over, it's always rolled over into the new future bigger thing. That's why Mars winds up becoming so important, even if we can't get there, okay? Which I don't think we can, okay? But it fits the oligarchs' mechanism because they're going to sell people shares in Mars whether we can get there or not, okay? They've sold shares in quantum reality based on the Large Hadron Collider, whether we can get there or not. Okay, they've sold us on landing on the moon and on atomic weapons and all of these other things that are imaginary. So the way that they continue this Ponzi scheme going is by selling you on something in the future. Okay, some new frontier. Okay, the globe is finite. Okay, we can't get past the von Karman. We can't get past the Van Allen belt. Okay, so they need to sell something. This is why cyberspace becomes so important. This is why AI becomes so important, because they got to sell you something imaginary because they're running out of tangible things to sell you. Okay. 3, the great taking, the asset stripping. So Simon Dixon is like, and Richard Werner are the experts on this. The guy who wrote The Great Taking, wrote about the blocking and tackling, about how they're going to pull the plug on it and they're going to pull everybody's assets and you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy. This is the Klaus Schwab thing. But again, there's going to be winners and losers in the oligarchs. And so there's a lot of positioning going on right now. And then the migration happens. This is why you see the JP Morgan gold desk being moved from Manhattan to Singapore, right? This is why we built the largest military base in the Middle East in Qatar, not in Israel, not in Saudi Arabia, okay, in Qatar. And my guess is that there's a bank there that entire military complex is built around. Just if you want to see what the technocracy thinks is important, because the technocracy is Donald Trump and then J.D. Vance. And it looks like Donald Trump came in as a full technocrat, but he might be leaning over towards the gold side, okay, which is why the insurance policy is J.D. Vance, right? Because he's in Thiel's pocket, right? He's a technocrat through and through. So anyway, they're moving. They want to move, and the United States will be reduced. And we'll have a currency that will be good here, but if you're buying things that aren't made here, they're probably going to get kind of really ridiculously expensive. So let me get rid of this and put this back on.
To ask a
Wait, no. Where did my slide go? All right. So the Phoenician method is mobile. Okay. It's parasitic. This is why Oswald Spengler or even Carol Quigley's stories of empires rising and falling, okay, there's a piece missing. And the piece that's missing is that it's the same wealthy Phoenicians that are moving, from, through all of these different places. So the Phoenician method is mobile. It's a parasitic methodology of control. It operates through thalassocracy, ruled by sea, which is why shows like Star Trek wind up becoming so important, because they're based on Horatio Hornblower. James Kirk is a captain who's got the authority of empire behind him. That's why he can make life and death decisions. It's not the Starship Enterprise is not the Enterprise is not a democracy, right? It's not a republic. Okay. It's totalitarian form of rule. And financial extraction. It consumes the host and then it moves on. Okay. So Babylon was consumed and they moved on. Greece was consumed and they moved on. Persia was consumed and they moved on. Rome was consumed and they moved on. Holland was, Europe was consumed and they moved over to Britain. Britain was consumed and they moved to New York. Now the United States is being consumed and they're moving someplace else. And the technocrats who are in the United States are trying to go in a different direction. They don't really want the United States to crash the way that Great Britain did. Okay, so we'll see what happens. I don't know. Watch this space, as they say in that part of the world. Let me see if I can go here. Okay, so this is it. You got from Phoenicia to Babylon to Persia to Greece, and this may not be in the right order because I might not have put the prompt in correctly, and LLM might have screwed it up, but I think it's close enough. You'll get the idea. Okay, Phoenicia to Babylon to Persia to Greece to Rome to Venice to Amsterdam to London to New York, and now maybe Singapore and Qatar, or the cloud. The cloud was added by the LLM. I didn't put that in the prompt, and I saw that and I thought, yeah, that's pretty good. I thought that's pretty good. The LLM came up with that. The vector is that the empire moves, it does not stay. The current chaos is the friction of migration from the hollowed out West. That's why all the Muslims are pouring into Europe. That's why all of the people from South America are pouring into North America. Okay, or all of the Somalians are pouring into Minneapolis, into Minnesota. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay. By the way, this happened in all of these other situations too. Same thing. Okay, it's a trope, as they would say in Hollywood. Okay, so you have to understand that there's a the public real economy, and then there's a central banking cartel. Okay, this is where epistemological warfare comes in. Okay, we call the central bank, which is the bank that represents the reserve currency of the world for the moment, the Federal Reserve. There's nothing federal about it. There's nothing reserve about it. Okay, it is a privately owned monetary system. Okay, that controls all the politicians. Back to Rose's question. Okay, it controls all the media in the United States of America. So I don't know how you pick people for a constitutional convention other than using William F. Buckley's pulling people randomly out of the phone book. Interestingly enough, that's a proposal that Nicholas Berggrun's Institute is making about running democracy with a random choice of selectors. Now, if it's as random as the lotteries that are run in most states, I think it's probably just as rigged. Okay, because they're going to tell you that these people are random, but they're not. They'll control them. It's not possible. So the Dixon-Werner model is that you lend to governments, you force state servitude via interest, which also refers back. I didn't put in this Proverbs 22:7, but now I got to go look it up because the LLM understands me, and my guess is Proverbs 22:7 is probably right there. And then you engineer cycles. You expand and contract the credit to destabilize ownership. Okay, so that's what's happening, is that the middle class is being asked out. Everybody that I know in the Palisades that wasn't wealthy to begin with is not going to be able to build and return to the Palisades. Okay, because they were underinsured. Even if they had good insurance, they're underinsured. Okay, and then there's the harvest, which is what's going on right now, asset stripping. So when my wife and I were driving around the Palisades on the 8th, there was Chinese people who were driving around in a big black SUV who were looking at lots the day after the fire. Okay. Why? Because all of the cheap stuff that we've been buying at Costco has been turning into dollars. And if China is going to wind up not being part of this, then the Chinese need to spend their money in dollars in the United States. And the best way for them to do that is to buy real estate. Okay. So we're burning down entire neighborhoods in the United States in order to free up the really good real estate so that we can repatriate those dollars from China. Okay. That's what I think is going on there. So Chinese people driving around the Palisades after the fire. Okay. So the government is downstream from belief. Okay. Andrew Breitbart said politics is downstream from culture. I think that he got killed because that downstream idea is not something that the oligarchy wants people thinking, because it's not a very hard idea to understand. Okay. If you're controlling media and education and religion, okay, then you're in control of belief systems. And that's how you get people to believe in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I think the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are great. I just don't think that our country is governed by them. Okay. Our government pretends that it uses those things, but clearly, if you look at the actions of the government and you look at what it says in those documents, there's a disconnect there. Okay. And that's because we're in an epistemic war. To control the state, one must control the definitions. Mental chains are more effective than armies. Okay. If you convince a population that liberty means access to credit, you've enslaved them without chains. Again, this is the problem that I have with the word liberty. It's very squishy. Okay. It's completely dependent on what the reference is to. All right. So the schism today is between Gold and Gigawatts. You've got all these data centers being built. Okay. Trump wants the oil in Venezuela. He wants the metals in Greenland. Why does he want all this stuff? Because they want to be able to create energy in order to drive the data centers, in order to power the control grid. AI takes a lot of electricity. Okay. A stable coin takes a zillionth of the amount of electricity as Bitcoin. Okay. Because Bitcoin requires a certain amount of crazy math in order to be able to make a transaction go through. And that's the trade-off that they made in order to get rid of some kind of a central gatekeeper on Bitcoin. Okay. So faction A is the past, the thalassocracy. They seek to retain the mystery of money through scarcity and physical gold. And faction B is the future, the technocracy. It seeks to replace mystery with certificates of energy. Currency equals watts. For people who don't know, technocracy isn't based on gold. It's based on watts. It's based on energy. Okay. Because their conceit, and if you think about it, the energy is created currently by burning hydrocarbons. We can get off into, I'm not going to get into it today, but the whole nuclear energy and free energy conversation is one that we need to have, because all energy today is based on, with the exception of windmills and solar panels, which is, will never be more than, somebody from Houston told me that if you covered the surface of the planet with windmills and solar panels, you would get to 11% of the amount of electricity that's generated by hydrocarbons. So hydrocarbons are it at this point, unless you're going to do nuclear. And you know, how much of, here's a question for the audience. Okay. How much of the nuclear weapons grade uranium that was negotiated by the Russians and the Americans during the West and the East in the START treaty agreements, how much Russian highly enriched uranium has been turned into nuclear fuel rods, and how much American, British, French, Western highly enriched uranium has been turned into nuclear fuel rods? I'll ask that question. If somebody has the answer, put it in the comments. There you go. All right, next slide. So faction A is a thalassocracy. Okay. It means that they base their finance is based on seaborne traffic. So if you think about when you put commerce on a ship, it's an iffy proposition. And so you need things like insurance, right? You need things like, which is shared risk, right? You need to be able to protect ships when they're moving from one place to another, okay? You need to account for spoilage for things happening along the way, right? There's all kinds of different financial concerns. And so a lot of the banking ideas have just been born out of seaborne commerce, okay? So the archetype is the merchant banker in Venice or London. The standard is gold in one place being represented in another place by notes, right? So gold backed. So the strategy is to return back to a gold backed monopoly on violence, collapse fiat to consolidate resources. And the philosophy is Meisterwelf, the Gulf, and these are called the black nobility in Europe. Humanity is cattle to be managed as debt. Okay, so that's why, you know, we're all born with in the United States with a license plate number, which is called our social security number, which is our debt number. Okay. Faction B is technocracy. Okay. And they measure things in energy. The archetype is the Silicon Valley person, either California or China. The standard is energy. The strategy is a digitized control grid with CBDC and social credit. And the philosophy is scientific dictatorship. The goal is that the Tower of Babel will be rebuilt with digital bricks. And, you know, my idea about using Notebook LM, people will criticize me and say that, you know, you should be using their tools because you're making them smarter. It's like, I think that if we can use their tools to defeat them, that would, you know, that would be my ideal at this point. That's what I'm trying to do. 2 wardens, 1 prison. The concept is that both sides, whether you're talking about the gold people or the digital money people, both factions are attempting to build a reality solely out of matter, and they're denying the divine. This is immoral. There's no morality that, you know, it's if I can do it, I should. If I can do it, I will do it. Kind of methodology. That's not moral. Okay, it's not moral. They can wrap it in this moral. They call it ethics, right? Instead of morality, they have ethics. Ethics are squishy. They're like liberty, right? The difference between the difference between morals and ethics is like the difference between freedom and liberty. One is a squishy idea, okay? That morally, ethics are morally relative. Let's just put it that way. Okay. Faction A worships scarcity of matter. That's right, gold. And faction B worships manipulation of matter. Okay. The neo-Gnostic eschaton, which means the end game, because they deny higher worlds, because they deny God, they must attempt to create a fake heaven on earth. This is Noel Harari. This is what he writes about, what he wants to do. He wants to, they don't think that we're born in God's image. They want to become God, okay? Because we're not good enough. The neo-Gnostic eschaton is because they deny higher worlds, they must attempt to create a fake heaven on earth. Okay, so it just put, I guess it put, again, this is one of the things that AI does. It just put the same thing in there twice. And I didn't have a chance to edit these before I came on today. This is the model. Okay, this is great. This is the crux, the trap of the horizontal, of horizontal. It says liberty under my logo there. The trap of horizontal liberty. You've got the Whig model, which is the gold-based model, where the freedom of the strong to enslave the weak through usury. Okay, usury is the mechanism, and it's a license to and liberty is a license to participate in a rigged market. We'll give you freedom. You can invest in anything you want as long as you're investing in our markets that we control and they're rigged. Okay, it's like, go have a party, go do what you want. You know, if you're lucky at the casino, you may win a cookie. You know, there's the transhumanist model, which is liberation from, okay, labor and biology. This is you clicking your end user license agreement when you install Instacart or DoorDash on your phone so that you can get your dinner brought to you. That's the liberty that they're giving you, the liberty to get your food any way you want, you know, to get your biscuit, your approved biscuit. The deception is both definitions assume man is merely a material being, okay, in a material universe. Okay. These are false choices, both of them. Okay. And my advice is that we have to reject them. All right. The resolution is vertical causation. So vertical causation is what Wolfgang Smith, who's a physicist, refers to as our corporeal connection to God. That is, there are things in this world that are unexplainable by our material existence. Creation is unexplainable. No matter how hard they try to tell you about the Big Bang, no matter how hard they try to tell you about Darwinian evolution, None of that is true. And no one has an explanation for it. Okay. Wolfgang Smith's solution is simple. It's God. Okay. And God is a different ontology. That is, we live in a universe of time and space. God is out of time. Okay. But somehow God is connecting to us. I do not believe that my brain contains my soul. Materialists believe that your soul is some kind of a chemical reaction inside your brain. I don't think my brain is big enough for all of the ideas that are coming out of my mouth right now. Okay. They're not. It's not that good. It's not that good a piece of hardware. It's like calling an Ethernet port the internet. Okay. The internet comes to you through an Ethernet port. The internet is a lot bigger than the Ethernet port. Okay. There's a lot more things connected to the Ethernet port. Okay. But materialists will point to the Ethernet port and go, that's where all of the knowledge of the internet is there, right there in that port. It's hilarious. Okay. True liberty is not a political right, but it's a spiritual endowment if you understand that it comes from God. Okay. It's whenever people use the word liberty, if their intent is not, this is freedom bestowed on you by God, then they're messing with you. Okay. That's it at the end of the day. Okay. So how do you fix this? Okay. This is the New Testament. Okay. This is my epistemological breakdown of the New Testament. Logos does not mean word. It means that which can be done with words. So I'm using logos right now in order to communicate with you. I'm taking my ideas, my thoughts, I'm turning them into words. They're hitting your ears. They're turning into ideas in your head. Okay. You're coming up with questions. I can see I've got some more questions in the chat. All right. That's logos. That's the Holy Spirit flowing through me, through my mouth, into your ears, back into the chat. Okay. God exists. John 1:1. In the beginning was the ability to use language to reason and communicate. And the ability to reason and use language to reason and communicate was with God. And the ability to use reason and communicate is God. Okay. Self-evident truth. Okay. Aquinas wrote great stuff. Augustine wrote great stuff. You don't need all of that explanation if you understand what the definition of the word logos means. Okay. Crisis. Why do we call in English the word crisis? This word crisis means, in Greek, it means discernment. You have to put logos and discernment together. Jesus is logos incarnate. Jesus went on the cross. Okay. When you put logos on the cross, what do you put logos on the cross with? Discernment. Okay. You put logos, language, together with discernment, and you get it's the Christian epistemology. Okay. The application is resistance begins by rejecting the definitions imposed by the empire. Why am I talking to you about this? Because if we use the Christian, if we understand it in the Greek that it was written in, it makes total sense how we actually wind up fixing this. Okay. Logos and crisis, those are part of it. Okay. What's the next thing? Praus. The meek shall inherit the earth. Praus is the word in Greek. It means strength under control, the reserved power to withstand collapse without becoming a beast. To not lose your temper. Okay. To understand what somebody else is saying to you, even when they disagree with you, to keep your powder dry, to keep your sword in its sheath, right? This is all prowess. There's a word in English, prowess. Okay. So why didn't they say the people with prowess shall inherit the earth when they translated it from the Greek into English? I don't know the answer to the question. The category of answer is called hermeneutics, but I digress. Okay. And then you have to use that process, the logos, the crisis, the prowess. You have to use it in the direction of love. You have to assume that your enemy has been lied to as much as you have. You have to assume that your neighbor wants the same things that you want. It's why you have to love your neighbor and love your enemy. Okay. you have to approach things with agape. Okay. You can't buy your way out of the great taking. Okay. You must be something that the system cannot price. Okay. Your logos is grace. Okay. It is bestowed on you without requirement of your doing anything to have earned it. Okay. You have it. It's the gift. Okay. We have to learn how to use it, because we can think our way out of not knowing, but we cannot know our way out of not thinking. All right. This is the last slide. In the beginning was the Logos. The choice is not between gold and gigawatts, but between the city of man and the city of God. It's not more complicated than that. Okay. And the state of Christos, to be anointed. When you do these four things, when you do Logos, crisis, prowess, and agape, when you do those four things, then you're anointed. That doesn't mean that you're Christ. It means that you're you're moving in the direction of Christ. Okay. When the mind is aligned with the Logos, the material control grid I would have put can become irrelevant. Okay. I don't know that it will become irrelevant, but it can be. Okay. But it starts with us, and it starts today, and it starts right now, because we have this ability now. There's nothing that's keeping anyone who's watching this right now from approaching the next major decision point that you have in your life with Logos, crisis, prowess, and agape. Okay. You can do it. You can do it now. And I hear dogs barking in the background. So let me go to the questions here. And I'm sorry if I've been going too long here, but I already answered that question. Let's go from Substack. Thoughts from the Taverna. You wrote a great article. You did a couple of things that I could have edited at the beginning. He wrote a great article on, so thoughts from the Taverna. Before I even look at this question, I'll tell people, go check out his article that he wrote in response to my conversation that I had with Mrs. Heritage History, because it's really good. It's spot on, and it's a great follow-up. And his thesis is that the Bene Gesserit in Dune represent. I'm not gonna spoil it here. They represent a groups and a power structure that exist in this world today, and in relationship to the things that I've been talking about. And so go read the article, because it's really good. He said his question is, how can technocrats turn the guard when their central banks are buying gold and control Bitcoin through the ETFs? Because I think they're all playing portfolio strategy. I think that this is proof that they're not sure that they can get away with this. They're all hedging, and that's why you get the mixed signals, because I think they're all hedging. That's my guess. I'm not there's a lot of people know a lot more about monetary theory than I do. I'm a generalist, and I try to stay on the meta level. But my thought is that they're hedging. They're not exactly sure, because they're gonna roll things out territorially. So the United States may become one, or the North American technate may become one system. Eurasia might become another system. It's kind of like when they did the West, the Iron Curtain, and then they did the Western countries, and they did the Soviet Union. Okay. The Soviet Union could never even really exist without support from the West. Like they didn't have the wherewithal or the mechanism to be able to do that. So it was, at the end of the day, just kind of a Punch and Judy show. But that's my best guess, and it is just that. Okay, it's just a guess. I don't. Do you want to come on my show and talk about the Bene Gesserit? Because I'd love to have you. And it's funny, because Matthew Crawford and I talked a lot about the Bene Gesserit at one point, and I don't think that even Matthew had that. your take on it, which is, he's a super smart guy. So when I read it, I was kind of blown away. All right. The Q says, have you asked George about what happened to the nuclear material turned into energy? He's done great work on that. The answer is somebody who follows me on the show texted me one day and said, go look up MOX, MOX. And I did. And everybody should go do that. Go look up MOX. MOX, George talked a lot about the results of the START treaty, which was megatons to megawatts. So I asked a question earlier, how much American fissionable nuclear weapons material has been turned into nuclear fuel rods? And the answer is none. How much of the Russian nuclear fissionable material has been turned into nuclear fuel rods? All of it. So the Americans and the Russians agreed that they would take all of their nuclear weapons grade uranium and turn it into nuclear fuel rods to boil water to turn it into electricity, which I believe that you can do. I believe that nuclear reactors are a real thing and that you can take nuclear fissionable materials and you can boil water with them. I'm not sure you can make atom bombs with them, but you can boil water. You can definitely boil water, and water drives steam turbines, and steam turbines can make electricity. So you can use nuclear materials to make electricity. We spent in 20 years, the United States government has spent about $1.6 billion building a factory that is not complete after having worked on it for 20 years to convert American fissionable nuclear weapons grade uranium and plutonium into fuel rods. The factory was never completed, and none of the work has ever been done to satisfy the treaty. Okay. The excuse that's given is that there was only one buyer of nuclear fuel rods, and that was Duke Energy, no relation. And that Duke Energy dropped out. And so there's nobody in the world who wants to buy these fuel rods. And so all of the weapons grade uranium and plutonium that the United States agreed to turn into fuel rods is sitting around someplace. I don't know where it is. But if you look at what the cost of energy is and hydrocarbons and stuff, the only reason that you take nuclear fuel offline in North America is because you want the economy to be completely controlled by hydrocarbons. I don't have a problem. They could build a nuclear reactor down the beach for me anytime now. I'm okay with it. And they should. But instead, they're going to drill the 500 million barrels of oil that are out in the bay there. I don't know. I'm digressing. Let me go back to another question. I don't know if I answered your question or not, Vic. Bob H. says, you mentioned ethical skeptic. If his thesis on the impending cataclysm is correct, would that explain both the return to gold and the digitization of all information as the best? Okay, if you understand ethical skeptics, I can't remember what the exact term it is, but basically it means that the shell of the earth decouples from the core of the earth. And the thesis is that every X number of thousands of years, which are revealed in the core samples, the core of the earth decouples from the mantle, and the mantle shifts around 104 degrees in a very short period of time, like in a year or something. And if you understand the physical forces involved, you also understand that that's kind of an extinction level event for many species. And the reason that I don't worry about the ethical skeptics contention that might be true is because I don't think there's anything that anyone can do about it, except perhaps live in an underground bunker that's got enough food to last several years, and oxygen and energy, So a deep underground military bunker style thing, Dr. Strangelove style, or be in a space station with enough materials and stuff that you can ride it out, and then come back down, kind of like an arc, or a kind of like I would guess Neil Stephenson's book Seven Eves. But I don't really worry about it because I live at the beach, and if the pole's going to shift 104 degrees, I'm either going to be at the edge of a giant desert, like the Sahara Desert, or I'm going to be under like 300 feet of water, like in a matter of minutes. So I'm not sure which. There's nothing really that I can do about it. So except pray. You can pray. Let's see. Praying is always good. Somebody says, oh, as to carry money and knowledge over the threshold. Yeah, I think I just answered that question. So if the poles are going to move 104 degrees and the North Pole moves to the middle of funny enough that it's funny because he put that out there and I was the first person to actually go crunch the numbers and put together a picture. The North Pole becomes Rhodesia in that case. So sub-Saharan Africa becomes the North Pole. And like I said, things moving around that quickly causes a lot of problems. You're talking about, earthquakes that are off of the Richter scale, like biblical floods. That's what you're talking about in a situation like that. And in that case, I think the only thing you can do is pray. Last question. DJ says, can you recommend a reliable translation of the Bible, one you would trust? 100%. 100%. In fact, I should publish this as a note or a story. One of the amazing, great things about large language models here. Let me do this. I'll demonstrate it for you. I'm going to use Notebook LM. I'm going to use ChatGPT because I'm confident with. I've done it so many times that I know what the results are going to be. There we go, and let's share this. Ding. I want everyone to do this. This is like a superpower. Okay, so one of the problems with Bibles. Share this. One of the problems with Bibles is a word called hermeneutics. And hermeneutics means the influence on a translation. It can be political, it can be sociological, it can be theological, there's all kinds of different ways, but there's reasons why in the beginning was the word, was written in the beginning was the word in English and in Latin, when it says in the beginning was the logos in Greek. And so if you understand how to, and one of the great things about large language models is that they're almost all trained with every version of the Bible, including the original Koine Greek, which are the oldest versions of the Bible that you can find. Okay, so technically they're Catholic. Okay, but they're written in Greek. Okay, and so for people who say, well, the Bible is the word of God, then is it the Greek-speaking God, or is it the Latin-speaking God? Is it the English-speaking God? Because they're all written in different words. So I go back to the original. Okay, so if you use this prompt in a large language model, and I've tried this in Gemini, and I've tried it in a few others, and it seems to work in all of them. Okay, so do, and the first word is interlinear. Do an interlinear translation of, let's go John 1:1. From the original Greek source, no hermeneutics. I've had to learn how to spell hermeneutics. No hermeneutics. And it looks like did I misspell it? Nope. It wants to make it heuristics. No hermeneutics using the Liddell Scott lexicon. If a word has more than one meaning, show all meanings, senses of the word. Okay, that's it. So do an interlinear translation of John 1:1 from the original Greek source. No hermeneutics using the Little Scott lexicon. If a word has more than one meaning, show all senses of the word. Boom. So the first word, ev, in, within, among, on. The second word, beginning, origin, first cause, first principle, rule, sovereignty, office, command, magistry, empire, domain. Was, existed, was, there. The, word, speech, saying, statement, utterance, account, narrative, story, report, reckoning, computation, calculation, account, as in an explanation, reason, ground, consideration, argument, reasoning, rational discourse, proportion, ratio, relation, rule, principle, formula. Okay. That's just the first clause. Okay. And the second clause, and also even, the same senses as above, was, with, to, toward, the direction of, against, in relation to, in reference to, with, in addition to, besides. So this is common and this is rare. On the side of, okay, the, and then it says God, deity. Okay, so the interlinear line and all, and then it'll give you all of the different meanings, and then at the end it usually gives you what it calls a gloss. Okay, so in the beginning, the first origin principle was logos, word, speech, account, reason, argument, ratio, principle, and word, speech, account, reason, principle was towards, to, with, in relation to God, and God was word, speech, account, reason, principle. Okay. So if you could, so I can do Matthew 18:20. Watch. Now do Matthew 18:20. Now it's doing Matthew 18:20. Where, in which place, for, since, because, are, exist, are there, two, or three, brought together, gathered, assembled, collected, brought into one, into, towards, with a view to, for, in reference to, the, my, mine, belonging to me, name, appellation, title, appellation, repute, fame, credit, a name, as a word sign used to designate. And then it gives you the full sentence. Where, for, since, are, exist, two, or three, gathered, assembled, into, towards, for, in reference to, the, my name, title, repute. And then it says, I am, I exist, in the midst, in the middle of them, among them. So Jesus is here now. If you understand the word logos, then Jesus is here now. So this is a great tool, okay? Because if there's something that you don't understand this is how I figured out logos, crisis, prowess, agape, okay? because I think there are two instances in the New Testament where the word logos actually means just word, the noun word. But in all of the other cases, it means pretty much that which can be done with words. So I'm going to look for any more questions, and then
look in the private chat. There's two.
Okay, there's two in the private chat. Here we go. I see three in the private chat. So somebody said, I agree completely with the core concept of a civil war between the Phoenicians and the technocrats, although I think I would add one more point. And again, I put this out as a thought experiment. It's not a finished, I'm not being axiomatic about it. And this is Vic Hughes who was saying this. The technocrats' real goal is total information. That is death to the Phoenicians, who must hide in the shadows that the technocrats can shine a light on. It's not only money and power, it's secrecy and the ability to hide from the mob with pitchforks that is critical to the Phoenicians. I think that's a good point. Again, we're both guessing, right? We're both trying to look at all of the pieces of the crossword of the puzzle without being able to put it together. It's a big puzzle laying on the table, and we can't put it together, but we can see all the pieces, right? And then he goes on to say, sorry, I wasn't clear. When on Wall Street, this is Vic again, I became aware that there was a whole industry that was designed to hide Phoenician assets. While most civil wars were over money and control, however, this one is also over information and secrecy. The technocrats will be able to expose the Phoenicians' hidden wealth and permanently destroy their secrecy. Permanently. That is something that the multi-general wealth cannot stand. In the UK, it is illegal to discuss the royals' wealth. Yes, and that would be great if the technocrats were American constitutionalists, but they're not. They're totalitarians. Well, they're totalitarian technocrats. They think that, technology, again, when you separate yourself from God, I think you're on the wrong side of history. All right. Last question. Bob H says, you mentioned an ethical skeptic. If his thesis, I already said that, impending cataclysm. Yeah. Look, if the poles are going to shift 104 degrees in a year or a day, bend over. What did my father used to say? If you think you're going to get hit by a nuclear weapon, you bend over, put your head between your knees, and kiss your ass goodbye. And be hopefully you're on the right side of God, because at that point you're going to meet him. In that case, we've been going for exactly 2 hours. I hope you guys got something out of this today. I hope that it helps you reframe your reality, and it helps you change the way that you look at things like the news and, all of the kind of knee-jerk stuff that's going on. And if you want to support the Duke Report, go to thedukereport.substack.com and please become a paying member. I don't charge for my content, okay? And it's because I depend on the kindness of strangers. I was talking to Mrs. Heritage History today, and I think it's easy to spot people who are controlled, because the people who are controlled do ad reads. And they're selling you things like income tax services and credit. They're selling you Bitcoin, and they're selling you gold. And I'm not selling any of that stuff. If you think that this stuff that I'm trying to put out there in the world is of value to you and brings value to you at your life. By the way, I am working on on something that I will make available. I'm working on a curriculum for homeschooling using all the tools that I showed you today. And I've been working on that for a few days now. And it's amazing what you can get done in a few days with the tools. But if you see value in this stuff, then please become a paying subscriber, because that way I can keep making the content for the people who aren't paying yet, because they will. When they come around to it, when they figure out how valuable this stuff is, they'll pay for it. If you don't want to don't want to subscribe to something, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/the Duke Report, and you can just click subscribe. on the Duke Report books, I haven't put it on the Substack yet, but if you go to dukereportbooks.com, where you'll find over almost 700 books that are very hard to find. That list is going to get bigger because I'm going to add all of the things that are on Mrs. Heritage History's site. I'm going to add all of those onto the book section of the Duke Report. And I'm adding half-an-hour podcasts and 8-minute video explainers on everything that I'm doing now. Okay. If you find value in that, there's a donate button there, and you can just go straight in and you can just donate without going through Buy Me a Coffee or Substack or anything. You can support me that way. You can buy t-shirts. I've got my We Need More Rope t-shirt. I have it in 14 languages. I have about 11 or 12 more languages that I've finished the art on, but I haven't uploaded them yet. So I'm trying to get We Need More Rope t-shirts in every language because I don't believe in violence. I don't believe that I really want to use the rope, but I think that if enough people are wearing We Need More Rope t-shirts, the politicians and the oligarchs might get nervous. They might get nervous if there's enough people wearing t-shirts like this. So with that, I will let you go. I can see that Quigley is walking around, which means that he probably wants to go outside and he wants to go for a walk. So with that, I am going to look at the comments one more time. And that's it. I will see you guys on the next podcast. I'm not sure what it is. And look for me on James Delingpole. I had a great conversation with him yesterday, and I think it's worth watching. Talk to you soon. Bye now.